you are going to love today. Today on the show, we have Tyler Robertson from Diesel Laptops. Learn how, as a side hustle, he was able to develop a team and turn it into a whole brand. Check it out.
Welcome to Masters of Employee Development, Mike Acker's YouTube segment devoted to training team members in any type of organization. Your host is a best-selling author, corporate trainer, and business leader. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Each episode, Mike welcomes a CEO, HR director, or other experienced manager responsible for leadership and development. Together, Mike and his guest expert discuss training successes, challenges, and best practices. Lean in, listen, and take part in a community dedicated to improving life through increasing leadership. Now, here's your host, Mike Acker.
Tyler, thank you so much for being on the program. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to have some conversation today.
Now, before we dive in to talk about who you are and some of the story, let's get into that question that you and I talked about beforehand. What do we do when we have an employee who feels like they're thrown into the water and it's just way over their head? They feel like it's beyond their ability and their leadership. What can we do?
Yeah, I think you find people go one of two ways, right? They either curl up in a ball and they just kind of lay over and die, or people grow and they go find the resources that they need to. And I know we'll unpack our story a little bit here, but that's exactly what I went through. And exactly what a lot of our employees went through is they had to learn new skill sets they weren't comfortable with. And we had to give them the right resources in order to go do that.
So a lot about that equipping. What are some things that you've done and what areas do you equip them in? Is it more technical or is it more general?
So we were scaling up here, right? It was just me and my garage back in the day. We got over 200 employees. The problem was
your garage, 200 employees in the garage?
Well, we couldn't fit. After we got about 3 in there, my wife said we need to leave, right? And go find another place. So she got tired of that pretty quick. But now as we've grown, I was hiring people that were really good at their job. Like, hey, you're great in tech support. You're my first tech support person. And all of a sudden they have 15 employees and they've never been a manager. They've never been a leader. They've just been a doer. And it's a totally different skill set than what they were doing before. And we had some people that were handling it and we had some people that just weren't handling it. And we had some people that wanted to grow and learn, but they couldn't. And those end up being hard conversations to go have with someone that's been with you since day one and say, look, you can't do this job anymore. And honestly, when we've had those conversations, they've been relieved. They weren't upset. They were like, thank God, I didn't want to disappoint you. I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad we're having the conversation. So you have to put the right resources. I didn't know it or realize it for a long time. And when it finally hit me is when our growth stopped and I was spending all day putting out fires and not dealing with my business anymore. I was just working on whatever was coming across my desk. And that's when we hit a wall and we had to figure out how to get past that. And I think every company hits that wall eventually. It's just how the executive or the CEO or the owner chooses to deal with that and change their mindset.
So interesting here because there's really 2 different groups that we're talking about that are in over their head. It's the leader themselves, but then also the person who the leader's leading can feel that way and really being able to self-identify. We're like, can I do this and grow and not curl up? I like that. And then how do I do that for others? Let's get into that a little bit too, but I want to hear a little bit about your story. And then I want to hear about, go back to what we just said here. I want to hear about what do you do when someone can't do it and how do you financially remunerate them because they're a great performer? But we'll get into that in a moment. Tell me a little bit about your story. You talked about the garage. Tell me a little bit about the company you run and your background.
So I had this part-time business I started just really to make some beer money on the side. And things were going really well. Yeah, they were going really well. And one day the employer I was working for, they kind of made me pick a path. They said either quit your side business and we'll give you a raise and a bigger bonus or resign. And I ended up resigning. So I kind of got forced into this entire thing. And it was me and my garage and dining room table. We had no outside funding, no investors, no nothing. And now here we are 7 years later, we have over 200 employees. We'll do north of 70 million in revenue. We still don't have outside investors. So we got cash in the bank and we've been profitable. So it's been a bootstrapping story through those 7 years. And through that, we've learned a lot. You talked about being over your head. I have every new employee that works for us come sits with me for 15, 20 minutes so I can get to know who they are. And I tell them all the same thing. I'm like, look, you're new to this company. A lot of times they're new to that role even. I'm like, I'm new to being a CEO. I've never been a CEO of 200 employees before. I have no idea what that means, right? So I'm figuring out just like you are, but we're all in this together. So we try to set that stage kind of right away. So yeah, it's been a fast, crazy ride. And I'm actually more excited about our future. I think we can get this thing to 100 million here pretty quickly in the next 2 years. And to us, the sky's the limit. So we're still kind of all guns a-blazing over here.
What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we're in the B2B market. So what we do is we provide efficiency solutions for people that are fixing diesel powered and gas powered equipment, but mainly diesel. So all those semi trucks people see driving up and down the road, those things are $200,000 computers nowadays. And you need diagnostic tools. You need people you can call for assistance. You need repair information. You need training on how to fix them. So we provide all those services to customers that are fixing diesel powered equipment. And then we do the same thing for the off-highway industry. So people don't realize there's more off-highway diesel engines than on-highway. So any farm tractor, anything that moves dirt, a crane, a generator, you go to the airport, all those things moving your luggage around are all diesel powered. Diesel's all over this world, and it is a worldwide business. So we have a pretty big total addressable market share, as we like to talk about over here at Diesel Laptops.
I love it. So let's get into a couple. Let's dissect this so that different groups of people who are listening on YouTube or on the podcast can grab a hold of it. First of all, what would you say to someone who says, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to go do something, I'm working for a job, kind of like you work for a job, or maybe I just want a side hustle. I got started from a side hustle. I was coaching people in communication, working for corporate America, corporate sales. Great job. Similar story to you. It was my whatever I wanted money. People would just Venmo me, do a speaking engagement, do this, and it took off. And so for you, what would you say to that person? They're in the spot that I was at, or they want to be in the spot, or they're kind of like you.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, right? So I think what everyone needs to learn, first of all, whether you like it or not, you want to be an entrepreneur, you're a salesperson, whether you want to be or not. I see a lot of people build products and like, well, I don't want to sell. I'm like, well, kind of goes with it being an entrepreneur. And you just need to know the basics of business, right? You need to understand cash flow. You need to understand the legal structure of your company. There's like that blocking and tackling of just what a business should do and how you should keep track of things and do things properly. It's a steep learning curve for a lot of people, but I thankfully had, my father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather ran a business. I worked for some other people and I learned all those things. So I always tell people, man, besides that experience, I had experience in this truck repair space, diesel repair space. So I really got paid for 15 years to go learn this whole business and learn all these things to go then do my thing over here at Diesel Laptops. And then I always tell people too, is just don't be dumb. Like don't quit your job without having some sales and some stuff already going, right? Like you can work on that in your side time. I mean, I was working probably 16, 18-hour days for years, doing my regular job and my side hustle, which really made it easy for me to transition from when I got that ultimatum to doing this thing full time here at Diesel Laptops.
Yeah, I love the need. You found the need. You obviously had something that you could contribute and fill that, which is always one of those classic ones. But I think you hit on something that a lot of people won't say. You're really in sales.
Yeah.
There's one guy I was working with, one of the clients I went out, was working with their executive team, and they're in a specific industry. And he said, we're not in the specific industry. We're in sales, and we just happen to sell the specific industry. That's what reminded me when he said that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we always try to tell people, look, here we're just here to help solve your problems, but we want to do that in the best ethical way, and we also need to make profit and all those things. But yeah, you're always selling, right? I mean, everyone's always selling. That's why we do a lot of the things we do is building our brand, and that's been a big thing with us in our space. When we started, our competitors were billion-dollar corporations. So everyone looks at it like you can't compete with billion-dollar corporations. I love competing with billion-dollar corporations. Like we have so many advantages that they don't have that allowed us to move and scale and do things. And I think it caught a lot of them off guard now that I look back on it. So yeah, it's totally doable thing, but you're in sales, man. You gotta put it out there, and you gotta be constantly doing what's right for your company to keep growing it.
It's so funny, and we'll talk about this afterwards because I'll come back on this. But I actually know of Diesel Laptops. And so when I saw all of you on here, I thought, oh my gosh, because I was speaking at OTR, and at OTR, Diesel was represented. So good for you guys for getting out there and being part of that. So we can chat about that later, but which is a conference for those people who are out there, and Diesel was one of the people who was right front and center, and your guys were up there doing their job. So great job. So if you're out there going, man, I want to be in people development, don't be dumb, find a need, solve it, and then be a salesperson. Now let's talk about you. What do you do when you got something, it's good, you're a high performer, people, you need to hire people. How do you start learning the ropes? How did you start learning the ropes of how to be a leader?
Yeah. So especially when you're a founder as well, right? So I think though I look back at time, like the first people I hired was people I worked with. They were people that I worked shoulder to shoulder with for years at other places. I knew exactly what I was getting when I brought them in there. And again, unfortunately, when you bring people in like that, there are a lot of doers. Like, here's your job, go do it. But as I said earlier, as we started to scale, that's when I noticed we were having problems. So some of them were really good about, hey, we need to be a team. Let's do some team activities and let's get to know each other. And other departments, it was, hey, let's just come in here and do our job and do these things. So like one of the examples that I can give is I brought in my first salesperson, and he came in and he really figured out a better way to sell these things than I was doing. And he got me to 20 million in revenue really quick. But we had all kinds of things happening that weren't so good. So he's in his 50s, late 50s, living in Kentucky. We're in South Carolina, our headquarters. We're hiring 20-year-olds out of college to help sell these things. And, there's obviously a cultural difference there too, an age difference and how things are done. We ran into that problem. And then we had no one there really training them and keeping them in line. And you get a bunch of 20-year-olds out of college together, and sometimes not so good things happen, right? Locker room talk on Slack channels, and there's all kinds of bad things happening all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, at the end of the day, it was probably my fault more than anything for letting it happen. But he was one of the guys when we said, hey, we need to figure out to be leaders here. He was one of the ones that I had to go talk to and be like, man, I'm sorry. I don't think this is working. Like you're not really involved in this training that we put together. You're not understanding it. You're not involved. You're just sitting there like a bump on the log. Like this isn't going to work. And he was one of the ones that was like, man, thank God. Cause I don't want to do this anymore. I hate managing people. I just want to go back to selling. That's my skills. That's what I'm good at. I'm not good at managing. I realize that now. And we had a couple people underneath him that were in the same thing. They thought they wanted to be managers, and they were trying their hardest in the classes, and they just weren't getting it. And we just had to say, look, I'm sorry. We're gonna put you back to sales. And I can tell you there was two of them, and in one case more than the other. But what happened was they were really upset and hurt when that happened. And one in particular, they're both still here, but one in particular, he's one of our best performing salespeople. And he said multiple times, like, thank God you did that to me. Like, he goes, I was stressed out all the time. I was overweight. He goes, my health's better. I'm making more money now. I have less stress. This is much better for me in this role. So I think we've had a lot of employees come through that have learned, they thought they wanted to be a manager and leader. And then once they realized that meant not doing the old things they were doing and learning new skills and different stresses and different things in their life, that they were saying, yep, I'd rather go back to what I was doing.
It's such an interesting thing when, we talk about this being the masters of employee development, and, kind of the joke is that there's no master. We're always learning. We're always a Padawan. We're always the apprentice. We're always figuring it out. And the moment you got it down, you got something new to come up.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who want to be a master, who want to do that, but they haven't mastered themselves first, or they're trying to switch. And I like what you're saying here, that when they're so good here, it doesn't mean they're going to be good here. And having that humility. How do you do that well? Because I've done that poorly. I've talked to somebody and said, hey, you don't have this in you. So if you need to have that conversation, what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal honest with somebody, right? And that's, I think, hard for a lot of people. I know it's hard for me. Like a lot of times I beat around the bush and I'm not direct with people. And I've learned over the last couple of years, like, okay, I can't leave any wiggle room here. They need to know exactly where they stand and how I view things. Because when I've realized when I haven't done that, I've had employees that have been around for way longer than they should have been here, and ended up not being a good situation for either of us. So I've taken a different approach and just been a lot more direct with employees now on, this is not working out. And sometimes it's really early, right? Sometimes they're here for 90 or 120 days, and you got to sit down and be like, look, I'm getting all kinds of red flags going off here because of this, and that. And sometimes they can adapt and change and pivot right. And other times they don't. And unfortunately, we got to go another direction. I know for me, it's been really, really difficult just to learn and not do things I've been comfortable with. So for me, one of the hardest things I had to do last year was give up control on a bunch of things. And when you're the CEO, the founder, the guy that built the whole thing, and you say, hey, you guys go do this now, that's really freaking tough to do because they're probably going to do it a different way. And frankly, what I've learned now is they do it a much better way. And when I brought some of these people in, I was paying them more salary than I was paying myself. And that's a really hard thing to wrap your head around. But I started to really realize if I'm the one that all these things are getting funneled to, I'm the one holding this back. And I woke up one day and realized that. I was like, man, the reason these things aren't getting done is because everyone's waiting for me for approvals or to do this or do that or look at this thing. I'm like, I'll never grow the way I want to grow if I keep doing that. And I've seen that happen in numerous organizations. I just met with another organization. You could tell every time we asked, it was a small company, 20 employees. Every time we asked a question like, well, who do we go for this or for that? The owner kept raising his hand. Like, this is not going to be good for you guys long term here. You're never gonna get out of your own way and scale this thing up and take care of us. Even I'm really concerned. So
Wow.
it becomes apparent once you start seeing it as you talk to other organizations and work inside them.
You know, if you think about it, what can you do to make that person who's in a role that they aren't qualified to be in? What can you say? I think you said what you could say, but the radical candor aspect of it, but also there's that aspect of making sure that they see it in you, leading first. So you're not telling them that they're not ready for something and pretending that you're ready for everything. I think that's a huge aspect.
Yeah. So it's like we tell all our managers, like if you have an employee come to review time and they get hit out of left field with something you say, like they didn't fail, you failed as a manager. They need to know exactly where they're at when those review times comes up. And unfortunately, you see that happen time and time again in organizations where employees are just kind of blindsided. Like, what do you mean I'm getting fired? What do you mean I'm sucking at my job? You haven't said anything all year. Now you're telling me, right? It's hard to have those conversations, but that just comes to the territory. If you want to be a leader, those are the conversations you have to have with people so they know where they stand.
What's the cadence that you have with your direct reports to make sure that they're informed as to their productivity and effectiveness and KPIs and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, I have my senior leadership team. We meet every single month, right? And we meet for several hours and we go through every department and everything going on. And there's a lot of conversation in there about, hey, this is what I'm not liking. Explain to me, why did you pick this strategy? What's going on? Or have you thought about this? So we try to make it more in that regard. But if it's the same conversation, 3 or 4 meetings in a row, that's me then saying, okay, we're going to have a one-on-one here and have a conversation about this. I'm not liking the direction this is going. So I'm still probably not as direct as I should be or as quick as I should be, but it's something, again, I'm growing, I'm learning those things as well. For our managers, they all have their meetings and every department runs a little bit differently in how they do things, but we want that constant feedback loop to them so they know where they stand. And it's hard to get your employees to do that. Nobody likes to have ugly conversations with people, but you have to do it in order to keep moving your company forward.
There's something about having ugly conversations or conversations with ugly components on a regular basis versus having that big one ugly conversation. Like where you drop it. I remember when I was one of my first employees, I had all this stuff that was boiling up, but I was waiting for his big review. And so, I devastated with him by dropping on some of the stuff. So I learned, and years later, I had to confront something, and I was consistently in our conversations, do this, do this, do this. And then when we had to sit down, it's like, look, man, have you been doing this?
Yeah.
No, man.
And I think our managers have kind of learned now, like if I'm asking for meetings with you like on a regular basis, it's not a good thing. So, because at first they were like, man, why does Tyler never talk to me? And I'm like, because you guys are executing and doing great. Like if I'm not involved, it means your things are going really, really well. And I only get so many hours in the day. So people have taken a little bit of, adjusting to get used to that philosophy.
Do you think that's a good philosophy?
There's only so many hours in the day for me to do things, right? The people that have departments that I don't interface with much are some of the people I get along best and have been here for a long time. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. In the beginning, we were talking all the time and dealing with things. And we had to get in the same cadence and the same mindset that, hey, this is the way I want the company to run. People can't read my mind, right? So you constantly have to have those conversations, especially if they're new managers, new departments, new initiatives, whatever it is. And the whole goal is to get through those weekly cadences. So that, hey, let's go to every other week. Let's go to every other month. Okay. We'll just meet when we have a problem. But it takes a while to get there in a lot of cases.
It's always interesting as I talk with people, the different type of meetings and the cadences that they have. It's fascinating. Let me shift gears over here because I know you're a company that started in the garage, just you, but you've really become an industry leader. So let's say we have somebody, whether they're on the entrepreneur side of things, maybe they are in a startup and they want to be part of that, or maybe they want to go do their startup. What does it mean? What does it take to become an industry leader?
Yeah. So I think for us, it's been a couple things. One, I knew since day one, like, hey, I need a place to talk about my business and what's going on. And LinkedIn has been one of those places. So I really hit LinkedIn hard. I focus on SEO. I focus on YouTube. And I can tell people, like, we're in this little niche industry, but my LinkedIn, I had over 2 million views on my LinkedIn post last year. We have over 8 million views on our YouTube page about diagnostic tools. So it's things you can work. You can find your tribe on the internet pretty easily if you just spend some time doing it. But for us, it's all.
Was that you early on doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, help me understand that, because
that was me holding cameras in front of laptops hooked up to trucks, just walking people through, like, look what we're doing on this thing today, and me writing a blog post and me posting on LinkedIn every week. And it was just me out there doing those things. Anytime a trade show would come up, I'd be like, hey man, do you need someone to speak about diagnostic tools or speak about this? I'll come speak at your trade show. So I was pretty persistent on just putting my name out there, my brand out there.
Yeah.
And the whole thing we came to market wasn't buy our tools. Like, you'll never see me post on LinkedIn, buy this tool. I'll just talk about how we're solving problems, how we're making the world a better place, how we're going to save time and efficiency and all these things. So we talk about that side of it much, much more. And it's funny, in my space now, people don't say, like, I need to buy a diagnostic tool. They say, I need to buy a diesel laptop tool. So we've really gotten that cadence. And once you build a brand's the hardest thing for anyone to compete against, right?
Sure.
So once people are Googling diesel laptops, not diagnostic tools, I've already won. So yeah. I can tell, you can look and see what your competitors are doing. They're all trying to target our keywords. They're not targeting truck diagnostic tools. They're making blog posts and front pages on diesel laptops. so they're trying to grab our traffic just off our brand name, but it doesn't matter because people aren't looking for them. They're looking for me. So today, our most search traffic that we get today is our own brand name. And I did not have that 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I had nothing but me and my computer and in my garage trying to figure things out.
I think what you've done is the Kleenex thing, right? Like tissue paper. Who says tissue paper?
Yeah.
Can I get a Kleenex? Who says search engine?
Yeah.
Google. Go Google that. Even if you don't use Google, you end up doing that. So I think that's fantastic. I wasn't aware. So I think anybody going, man, I want to become an industry leader, go back and find Tyler. You can find him at Tyler-Robertson-Diesel. That's on LinkedIn. This will be in the show notes and YouTube as well. And Tyler will mention it later. But if you're just going, I want to see that right now, pause this, go over there, click on that, find out what he's doing. He's also got a YouTube at youtube.com, and then Diesel Laptops. Just make sure there's 2 L's right there. So industry leader right there, that just, you went for it, you found your niche and you dove in.
So, and I think we did something else too. Like I was really transparent. So I think a lot of times people see, like, LinkedIn, right? It's always about all the good things that happen. Mm-hmm. Trust me, I talk about just all the bad things that happen to us as well. Employees stealing money from us, Russian hackers stealing $40,000 out of our bank account, us screwing up customer deals. Like, that stuff's on there just as much. But I've always been like, you know what? I'm just going to keep putting my story out there because it's our story. And, whether people love us or hate us, at the end of the day, what comes across, I hope, is our company is really, really transparent on what we're doing, and that we're just here to help people. And I think customers really appreciate both those things more so than the typical corporate, billboards and ads and things you see from other competitors of ours.
So you're hitting on this, like, diving in. You were doing this, you're doing these videos, and then earlier you mentioned when at the beginning you did this, you were working 16 to 18 hours. So talk to us about that work-life balance. Obviously, it's a huge thing right now with a lot of the workforce is going, man, I want to work less. So talk to me about.
Yeah. So as we were growing, I had to work those hours because I was at first the only one. And then I brought people in that knew nothing about the space, nothing about the products, nothing about the market. Mm-hmm. And we were growing so fast there. I mean, we were doubling revenue. We went from 3.5 to 8 to 16.5 to 32 million a year, like in a heartbeat. And when you grow that fast, you have to work a lot of hours. There's just too many things going on, too many new people, too many things are happening. But I can tell you now that we brought in training. We taught people how to be leaders. We got more corporate structure. I got a senior executive staff. We do strategic planning. Like we do all these things now that organizations should do as they scale. But today I leave work every day at 4 o'clock. Like you're not seeing me here after 4 o'clock. And usually on Fridays, I'm out of here by about noon. I got an 8-year-old. I got an 11-year-old. There's not much time there I have left with them on that family side. And I don't want to miss those moments. Mm-hmm. I've been able to finally start spending a little bit more time with my dad and my family and doing those things. I've been able to take my dad. We just went fishing in Costa Rica. We just went over to Spain and Madeira and did some fishing and business there. So I've been trying to find more time to balance everything. But it's like they always say, like you have your health, you got your personal life, your professional life, you got religion and a social life. I have yet to find someone that can do all 5 of those successfully. So I've just said I'm going to do 2 of those really good. I'm going to do my best on the rest. And those are, I made a conscious decision on that. And, there's negatives with that, right? So I do really good professionally. I got my family life. I don't have much of a social life. I don't have a lot of friends I hang out with. I don't have time for those things in my life. And I have to live with those decisions. But if anyone ever does all 5 right, I would love to meet them and learn how they do that.
That's good. There you go. Take them up on this challenge. Send them a LinkedIn and tell them this is how you do it. That's good. One of the things that you guys have been known, there's a couple questions I have here that I want to dive into. Okay, here's a question everybody wants to know. How do I do a multi-million-dollar business?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about me is when I started my business, like I kind of gave the story there. The piece I didn't say is I had no debt. I had my house paid off. I had my cars paid off, no credit card debt, no student loans, none of that. And I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and a wife that was a stay-at-home mom. So number one, not having debt and having cash in the bank, man, it is much easier and less stressful trying to grow and scale a business because you don't need to take money out of your own company to go pay for things. And truthfully, I didn't take a salary out of my own company for at least a year. And even after that, I was only paying myself 50, 60 grand a year. I was taking out just the minimum I needed to cover my bills and still have something of a life for my family. And the other thing that's a little peculiar about me is I don't care about profit. So we take almost everything we make and we put it right back into the company, like literally millions and millions of dollars a year we do that with because we keep playing the long game. We keep looking at the future and being like, okay, what if we did this thing and it may take us 18 months, 24 months to get there? Should we do it? I'm like, well, I don't really care for the money. I don't need it. Let's just go put it and think long-term. So we've been basically doubling down. I always tell people it's like playing blackjack and I've been doubling down for 7 years. So we're still in a good spot though. We can still afford those bets. But it's just been about growth. And that's allowed us to bootstrap. I don't control the company. I don't have to deal with outside investors. Like we don't have to deal with any of that stuff that a lot of people do when they try to grow and scale a business. So it's just really, man, it's just being smart and not doing dumb things, not taking risks you can't afford to lose. You need to take risks, but just understand if you lose it, you don't lose your business. And finding the right people around you and employees. You need a great tax professional. You need a good attorney. You need a good banker. You need all these people around you to be able to scale and keep growing your business and making sure people understand, where you're trying to get to.
I think that's great. One of the things that you mentioned here, and then kind of in passing, kind of including in it, and then you mentioned previously is this idea of investing upfront. You put in the work upfront, those 16 to 18 hours, and then you're receiving the dividends now. And likewise, right here, you had the upfront debt payment and wisdom right there, and then you were able to receive the dividends there as well.
And I think that's been one of the biggest changes across our entire company is for those first couple of years, because we were growing so fast, it was just answer the phone, sell the stuff, take care of the customers. Answer the phone, sell the stuff, take care of the customers, just over and over again. And it really wasn't until about 2.5 years ago when kind of our revenue started to plateau is when we said, man, we need to figure this out. And that's when strategic planning came into place. And the hardest part for me was, Tyler, where do you want to be in 5 years? I'm like, I've never thought of it. Like, where do I want to be? Do I want to be sitting here? Do I want to be on a beach in Tahiti? Like, where do I want to be in 5 years? And I realized me not knowing the answer to that question was really causing our company to not make the right decisions today to get us to that point. So where do you want to get to? And we really had to narrow it down to say, hey, we want in 3 years, we want to be a $100 million revenue company. We want 20% of that revenue to come from products that don't exist today. And we need to put a certain amount to EBITDA to keep everybody happy here. So until you start really figuring out what your goal is, you can't put a plan together, right? So it's like everyone says, having a goal without a plan is a wish, right? So we really get focused on that. And even today, I had meetings with employees in different departments on their strategic plan and where are you at, how are things going, all those things. But we finally got everyone rowing the boat in the same direction so we can get to our destination.
That's cool. When I look at that question right there, I think it doesn't sound like you set out to create a multi-million-dollar company.
100%. I've set out to just create beer money and do some things, right? But here's what happened.
Then it almost sounds like it wasn't like it. You weren't setting off for the peak. You were just doing the right things that get you to the peak.
I was just trying to help people. Like I was in the space where we're trying to help people fix broken trucks, and people don't understand when a commercial truck breaks down, it's not like a car where you can go rent one. Like there's a trailer attached to that thing or a piece of equipment, and somebody somewhere has a problem all of a sudden because the product's not showing up. And I was just trying to help people. I'd done that forever working for dealerships. Like they had problems, they'd come to the dealership. And I just viewed it as an extension of that to say, hey, we're going to find ways so you don't have to come to dealerships, so you can fix your own things, the whole right to repair stuff. We want to provide you access and tools so you can run your business better. Yeah. And I think people really appreciated that. And a lot of people in our space previous to us, they would just sell one piece. They'd sell just the tool. The tool will tell you what's wrong, but then you got to go buy repair information from someone else to figure out how to fix what the tool told you. Yeah. So we're like, let's just do all this together and just go to the customer with one thing versus 8 things that they're buying today from 8 different vendors. And
the diesel laptops look pretty cool because I saw them at the OTR conference.
Yeah. They're like our main ones, like these big rugged ones. They weigh they're like literally have a video driving a car over them and hit with a baseball bat and a blowtorch and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, they're fun to play with.
Well, I mean, if they're out there off the road, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, they're usually outside, right? So they got to deal with humidity and heat and direct sunlight and temperature swings and all these things that you don't deal with on a computer on your desk. So we had to do it a little bit different way.
So I think a lot of times when people are looking at doing something entrepreneurial, this is kind of a shift over here, but maybe they're in management or something, they think of entrepreneurial, I'm going to go in something soft. Not that it's soft. I mean, there's a lot of soft skills that have hard edge value, right? So like I teach communication and emotional intelligence, but the stuff that I do, I don't need a lot of technical stuff to do it. Now I have 20 years of speaking, I have all this, but I don't have to create some kind of physical product. So if you're going to say like, how did you figure out how to create, do you have a background in IT? How did you get there?
Yeah, I mean, so I worked in dealerships, so I knew the problem, and I did go to school for 2 years for computer engineering, but they kicked me out for bad grades. So I knew enough to be dangerous. But really, for me, the company just started with taking other people's products and bundling them together. So I found a guy that had software. I found you need a laptop, you need hardware to connect the truck to the tool, and nobody was selling all 3. I'm like, well, I'll just sell all 3 together and go there. But as we did that, we started making our own software and we started buying the rights to certain software. We just I kept all the money in the company. So we were able to kind of keep buying and expanding out and providing more resources. And at the time I looked at it as differentiators, but I look back now and I think that the answer to your question is really this simple: provide a benefit to your customer. Yeah. It could be hearing knowledgeable advice from your speaking. It could be them buying a diagnostic tool to fix their truck. It could be them getting some ice cream to make them happy, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You just got to figure out how to provide a benefit to who that user is. Yeah. And once you learn what that benefit is, you can do a business. So it's always interesting, right? Because people always think they need to have a new idea to be an entrepreneur. No, you don't. Go open a pizza shop. Go open an ice cream parlor. Go open a pack and chip store. It doesn't matter. Just go find a benefit that your customers understand and value.
And you have a passion for customer service. Is that something that you are embedding and really training your team with? What do you do to make sure that they have the heart that you have with what you just said?
Yeah, so it took a while, right? Because I think a lot of times people, first of all, I hate calling these big, huge companies and getting passed around 30 times to talk to a human. Mm-hmm. So that's the opposite end of what we want to do. And the way we explain to our employees is like, look, there's only so many people working on commercial trucks and equipment.
Mm.
If we start being jerks to these people, like we're going to be in trouble, because that one customer, I mean, he could buy 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 of equipment over the next couple of years from us.
Mhm.
So if someone's arguing over a $30 bill over something, just take care of it. It doesn't matter. It's such a minute thing in the grand scheme of things. So our employees know, like, we're going to do what it takes to take care of the customer. And I'll bring it back to the advantage I have over the billion-dollar companies. They are very structured. They have to do things a certain way. They don't have a lot of autonomy in the different levels in customer service. We're the exact opposite. We're going to take care of you. We're going to answer the phone when it rings, and we're going to help you out and help solve your problem. If we can do things, we always say we're going to have a customer for life, because our competitors can't do that. And they try, but they just can't. They can't have a call center in India treat them the same way as I have a diesel tech answering the phone on the first ring to help solve their problem that they got on their truck. It's just too difficult for them to compete. And we're able to do it, and we charge a premium price.
I had a difficulty with something at one point in time. It was really cool is the guy who was my contact, this is a while back, and he just wrote me $100 check for it.
Yeah.
And when I got the check, because he said, I'm gonna send you $100 check. I thought it'd be from the company. It's from him. And I got it and I thought, way to go. You took care of this on your own. And maybe he got reimbursed, maybe he didn't. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, making me feel like I was valued to him was better than him. I mean, I'll keep on working with him because of that. So I love what you're saying. There's that customer service. Let's wrap up with this final question. Okay, so you're in a dealership, you have a life, it's paid for your house, it's paid for your cars, it's done all of that. And then you have this decision that you're faced with. Do I leave or do I stay? How do you make that kind of decision from going from employee or manager or sales consultant or working for Microsoft at a high level to starting that pizza store?
Yeah. So I can tell you, like, my story here is when that ultimatum got thrown at me, I did what I think every son does, is they go talk to their dad. Like, Dad, what do I do? Right? 1-year-old, 3-year-old, wife doesn't work. He's like, Tyler, you make about 6 figures with that company. You got your 401k, your health, like, you got to stay there. Like, figure out a way to sell your business or not let them know about, like, figure out something to do with that side business, but you cannot quit. And you know what? That's probably the same advice I would give my kid too, right? Like, that's the safe option. And it's not just you, you got your family to care about. So then I went home and talked to my wife and told the whole story. And she goes, you know what? Quit your job tomorrow. And I'm like, you sure about that? And she goes, look, if they're doing this now to you, like, what if you do this, you quit your side business, all these things go away, and then they fire you tomorrow? Like, what happens then? And I'm like, well, that's actually a really good point. And she goes, look, you're really smart. You understand this thing really well. And the fact is, if it doesn't work, she goes, I'm pretty sure you'll find a job somewhere else really quick. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, you are right. So, when I started looking at it through her lens of, like, is it really risky to quit my job? Not really. Like, I had money in the bank, I had a side business going, and I could go work for somebody else if it didn't work out. So we, cut the budget back to zero and, made it work, and things obviously took off, and we've done really well for ourselves. So I still give my wife credit. She still gives me credit, like, every day, I think, that she was the one that told me to do this. But it goes back to that, though. Just don't take a risk you can't afford to lose, and think of it through a different lens. And there's tons of opportunity out there. I just happen to be a lucky guy at the right point in time with technology, with my background, my experience, and this whole thing kind of all converging at this one point in time. I still feel fortunate I was at the right place at the right time with the right experience. And, I'm glad I walked through the right door.
Well, I want to correct you on that. I don't think you were lucky. I think that you worked your butt off and you trained yourself and you learned it. What I've always found out, I'm jokingly on correcting you. I just find out when people work their butt off, when they learn what it is really well, and when they get good counsel and they do all those things, that luck is a lot more often.
It does seem to work out there. Yeah, I'll give you that. In hindsight, I would never, you look at it and be like, how could you go monetize knowing something about diagnostic tools, right? Like truck diagnostic. Like, I never thought I'd be able to do that. So but you're right. A lot of hard work, a lot of thinking differently, and having the right mindset. So just a lot of challenges along the way, but we're still growing and things are going great.
I love it. Hey, where can people find you, Tyler?
Yeah, so I mentioned it once, but I love LinkedIn. So if they go on LinkedIn and type Tyler Diesel, or Tyler Robertson and Diesel, they'll find me on there in a second. If they really want to go back, like you said, 7 years ago, I was posting stuff on there 7 years ago, what was going on, so they can see the entire journey. Otherwise, diesellaptops.com, if they want to learn about our industry or what we sell or any of that stuff, is out there as well.
I like the idea of connection on LinkedIn because, especially even going back, because sometimes what we do is we compare ourselves with, I've seen your product, like, wow, how do I do that? I mean, I can't do that. But if you can go back and see someone's starting point, then, where people are working out of the garage, it's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, I started a company with none of my own products, none of my own services. And 7 years later, we're doing 70 million in revenue, right? So there are paths out there, but again, people need to think a little bit differently and solve people's problems. World of opportunity out there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hey, well, thank you so much, Tyler. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and what you've learned in leadership with us at Masters of Employee Development.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure for being on.
And to all of our listeners, our subscribers, our viewers on YouTube, thank you so much. Take a moment to like, subscribe, check out the show notes so you can find out a little bit more about Diesel Laptops and story right there. And then until next time, thank you for being a part of the show.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.